Back for more fun. Hit it. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Mandela Effect video. Boy, we are whipping through a lot of these Mandela Effects. Today, I have a whole bunch. Gosh, there's probably 10 or 15 on this list, and they are historical Mandela Effects. History, stuff that's happened in history. We talked about Razzle Dazzle. Razzle Dazzle is one of my favorites. Check my other video. I'll put a card up there if you want to see that one. But there are a lot more Mandela Effects that have happened throughout history. Now, I'm going to touch on some of the main ones today. However, there's been many that kind of people disagree on, but I want to go through and hit some of the main ones. Some of these are newer, some of these are old. You guys will know some of these, but some are newer. You might not know some of them. So let's just dive in, and everybody can be here and just having fun with the Mandela Effect. Let's go. First one that I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to just touch on Lassie. Now, we all remember the great TV show Lassie. There's Timmy, Lassie. Everybody remembers what happened to Timmy that was really famous. Lassie barked. What happened to Timmy? Timmy fell down the well. Timmy fell down the well. Lassie barked and they rescued Timmy. It was a famous episode of Lassie. Problem is, there's no record of Timmy ever falling down a well. There's not an episode that has that. That was never in Lassie ever. So where did we get that Timmy fell down the well? Do you remember Timmy falling down a well in Lassie? Because I sure as hell do. And that's very mysterious that would just disappear from all episodes of Lassie. Timmy, where did the well go? Where did that episode go? I remember watching it. Strange. Wanted to throw that one in to start. Very strange. Second one, let's jump into historical ones. Now, this one is very strange, and people don't know what's going on with this one. It's newer. I had not heard of this one. And what it is everybody remembers Anne Frank. Now, Anne Frank was born in Germany in 1929. She was put into a German concentration camp, where she later died in a German concentration camp. And there was a famous novel, diary of her writing out, what her experience was, what she went through there. It was made into a book. Lots of schools have read this book. And the name of the book was what? It was The Diary of Anne Frank, right? Everybody remembers it being The Diary of Anne Frank. The problem is, it's not called The Diary of Anne Frank anymore. It's called The Diary of a Young Girl. Now, that's really strange. The Diary of a Young Girl. It was always The Diary of Anne Frank when I read it. Like, I remember specifically The Diary of Anne Frank. I don't know where that went, what happened there. Now, there was a stage play in 1955 called The Diary of Anne Frank. It premiered at the Court Theater on Broadway. And then it was updated again in 1997, and that was called The Diary of Anne Frank. So people could be conflating that. But the original novel, her diary, people are just like, The Diary of a Young Girl, that's what it was originally called? No, when I was in school, on the cover, it was The Diary of Anne Frank. So how did that change? There is residual around of Diary of Anne Frank, but it was always The Diary of a Young Girl. That seems so strange to me. Anyway, look that one up, see what you think. It's just strange. And it says it was included in several top books of 20th century lists, and it was written in 1947. The copyright has expired. It's now available online. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Henry VIII. Now, this one's a famous one. It's been around a long time. Henry VIII, people remember a piece of chicken being in the painting with Henry VIII. Problem is, there's no record of that painting. There's no record of him ever there's record of the painting, but there's no record of him having a chicken leg. But people remember a chicken leg. But Henry VIII never had a chicken leg in the painting. Where did the chicken leg go? We all remember Henry VIII having a chicken leg, and now that is gone. The chicken leg has gone bye-bye. That one's been around a while, but for those who haven't seen it, where did Henry VIII's chicken leg go? It's disappeared. There's no record of it. Strange. That's a historical one. Okay, let's keep going. The worst airship disaster in history. What was it? Do you remember? When people think about this, they think of the Hindenburg disaster. It was huge. People remember the Hindenburg. The problem is the Hindenburg wasn't the biggest disaster. It was actually the USS Akron, A-K-R-O-N, the USS Akron. And actually a lot more people died in that during it was a thunderstorm in April 1933. And during the Akron disaster, 73 people were killed, which by contrast, 36 died in the Hindenburg disaster, which was in 1937. So the Hindenburg was 4 years after this USS Akron. Both were over U.S. soil. The Hindenburg was, it was a German passenger aircraft, but people don't remember this USS Akron being more people killed and it being a bigger disaster. They always remember, the big one being Hindenburg and it being much bigger. That seemed to come out of nowhere. So that's kind of like a razzle-dazzle effect, the razzle-dazzle appearing on ships. People don't remember the USS Akron being this huge disaster. Do you remember that happening? It was a bigger disaster than Hindenburg. But Hindenburg is the one that everybody always talks about. There were more people killed in the Akron one, 73, than there were in Hindenburg, which was 36. So strange. The Akron was in April 1933, and the Hindenburg was in 1937. So Hindenburg was 4 years later. Very strange. And there was footage of the USS Akron before this happened. There was actual footage of it, but there wasn't footage of the actual disaster. So people say that could have played an effect. I don't know. Strange. Curious what people think on that one. Okay, this is a big one, and people don't remember this one, but apparently, now we all know when Pearl Harbor happened, it was very tragic, very sad. However, there seems to be a discrepancy, which is the Pearl Harbor attack was December 1941. We all remember that, right? Pearl Harbor, obviously. Now, apparently a newspaper detailed potential attacks on the U.S. in 1937, and they literally outlined what could be the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor. Like, it was laid out in a newspaper 4 years before it happened. Huh? Like, wouldn't we have studied this in school? The newspaper said, the records held by Cornell University note an eerily prescient 1937 map of the Japanese attack on the U.S., highlighting the significance of Pearl Harbor. The first objective must be capture of Hawaii. This would mean crippling or annihilating the U.S. fleet. This was put in the newspaper as a prediction in 1937. That's an awful amazing prediction. And wouldn't they have talked about it more? And wouldn't we have studied that? It detailed the exact plan 4 years before the attack happened. People don't remember that newspaper account happening at all. I mean, this newspaper, if you take a look at it, it's literally blown up. You can see the different colors and the different potential ways they could attack. And Pearl Harbor was a big one. Pearl Harbor was a big one that was outlined in it. So people are strange just to see this, and they're like, what? Like, where did that come from? That came out of nowhere. It's another razzle-dazzle effect, as I like to say. So let me know if you remember that newspaper or an account of it, because that seems very strange. Let's move on. We got to keep going. Da Vinci's 1490, The Proportions of a Man, Vitruvian Man. Da Vinci's been involved in a lot of Mandela effects. That guy just keeps popping up. Now, the strange thing about Proportions of a Man, Vitruvian Man, is people remember, what's strange is how many arms and legs did Vitruvian Man have? Remember the guy who was like this, like his arms and legs? Like, how many arms and legs did he have? Well, everybody remembers him having 6. However, he only had 4. Now, I think that looks strange because I remember other arms being up there, like on the side, Vitruvian Man. But apparently, he always had 4. But that just looks strange because, I remember other arms being there. The legs, I kind of remember, but the arms for sure out here. I remember when arms were on there, and there were always 4, always had been 4, but people remember 6. How many arms and legs do you remember that Vitruvian Man had? Vitruvian Man having? How many do you remember? Because I remember, it's so strange to me because I definitely remember 6 arms, and there's only 4 now. There seems just to be a gap. That's very strange. Let's keep going. Oh, okay. Abraham Lincoln. We have a lot of Abraham Lincoln Mandela effects. Let's just roll through them. First of which is the Gettysburg Address. Now, it's really weird with the Gettysburg Address because people remember the dialogue being 407 years ago, our fathers. What? 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal? Our fathers. It was our forefathers. What happened to the 4 part? Now, there's a lot of residual on the internet of forefathers, of people doing it in movies. So that seems very strange that why in the original Gettysburg Address is all record of it being just fathers? Yet we're all saying forefathers. So something strange is going on there. What do you remember? Do you remember it being forefathers or just fathers? Because it's always on record been fathers. Curious what people think. I remember forefathers. It's all over the internet. Now the record shows it just saying fathers. So I don't know where forefathers went. That's a strange one. Abraham Lincoln, people remember him also being a devout Christian. However, he never was. He wasn't, a Christian. In fact, he was very hated at the time. People didn't like him. He was seen as, a rebel. People rallied in the streets against Abe Lincoln. But there's this memory that people have of him being a devout Christian, and he wasn't. Now, what do you remember? Do you remember Abe Lincoln being a Christian or not? Because everybody has this memory of him being a Christian, and he wasn't. He was deeply religious. He was in a Baptist family. He grew up in religion, and yet it's strange because he looks like he's going to church. I mean, when you see him, like he literally looks like a church guy, but his family was religious Baptist, but he actually wasn't. He was not a Christian. People are like, that's strange because they remember him being a Christian. What do you remember? He never was a devout Christian, according to current records. Okay, let's go to a few of these. The Lincoln Memorial, the fists, one is clenched, the left's clenched, and the right is going over. Now, people remember both being clenched. Like, what do you remember? Because now the Lincoln Memorial has a bigger hand, and it's like grasping over the side of it. But people remember both being clenched. But one hand of Lincoln's has always been like this on the memorial. How do you remember it? Because people are like, the memorial looks like it freaking looks like it's changed. Like, if you look at it now, it's got his hands like this, but people remember it like that. Here's what people think there. Let's keep going through them. Moses' horns on the topic of stuff on monuments that have appeared differently. Moses has horns now in like lots of art. If you look it up on the internet, he always has horns coming out of the top of his head. People don't remember Moses having horns. Now, there's still some with him without horns, but they don't remember him ever having horns all over the internet, like in art and such. Does Moses suddenly have horns? Does that seem strange to you? Weird. Then there's another one like that, the famous thinker statue. Like, you remember he was going like this and it was on the side and he was like bent over. Well, currently he is, his open hand is on his chin like this. However, people don't remember that. They remember it being on his forehead. Do you remember it here or on the forehead? Because currently it's on the chin. It's right here. But people remember it being up here. And they're like, why is it now on the chin? Like, did that change? It was always on the forehead from what people remember. I remember it being on the forehead. I don't know why it's on the chin. That looks strange. So all three of those, Abe Lincoln's fist, the Moses' horns, and the thinker and the chin, all have changed. Like, what is going on? So monuments are changing. Okay, this is a weird one. Do people remember there was a terrorist attack in the early 1900s, and it was in the Statue of Liberty, and what happened was the Germans started a terrorist attack, and there was a huge explosion, and it was against a munitions supply dump, and it actually did damage to the Statue of Liberty in New York, killed 7 people. Everybody thinks of the biggest terrorist attack happening. There was obviously 9/11, and there was World Trade Center, and there was obviously Pearl Harbor, but people don't remember. It was called Black Tom, and it was they attacked this U.S. operation right near the Statue of Liberty. There's still a plaque there to commemorate it, but people are like, I never remember hearing that. Historians are like, there's actually been historians who are like, I don't remember Black Tom, this terrorist attack that did damage to the Statue of Liberty, or did damage to the torch. Do you remember that happening? Early 1900s, the Germans attacking some munitions, a U.S. setup nearby? Because that seems to have come out of nowhere. That's another razzle-dazzle effect. Like, where did it come from? Let's get to a few last ones here. Okay, Christ the Redeemer. We all know the Christ the Redeemer like this in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. People remember it as different sizes. Some remember it being smaller than it is. Some people remember it being bigger. There's some people that speculate that maybe it's because different sized people, different photographs, different angles. I mean, that very much could be true. I don't know, but it seems to be a different size than what people remember. They remember it as smaller or bigger than what it is now. Hard to say. How do you remember Christ the Redeemer? Does it seem different to you when you look at the size of it? Hard to say. Let's real quick get into the pyramids, because the pyramids are just crazy. Now, people remember the 3 pyramids lining up like Orion, the constellation. However, when you look at this picture, they don't quite match Orion's sizes, and that people remember the middle pyramid, the Great Pyramid, being the biggest one, and then the one offset to the left being medium size, definite medium size, and then the other one is the smallest, just like the stars of Orion. However, if you look at different photos now online, the photo that was the medium pyramid is now like the same size as the big pyramid, as the Great Pyramid. So like, did the pyramids change? Like, people are like, that looks so different. Like, that is so strange. Like, I'm even looking at this photo and I'm like, they're like the same size. Like, that doesn't even match Orion. Like, what is going on with the pyramids? Also, regarding the pyramids, there were never mummies in the pyramids. Now, the pyramids were used for all sorts of different things. You know, there were different ways, and the history has been a little bit debated here, but mummies themselves never existed inside the pyramids. And that's what's on current record. And people are like, no, growing up, there were tons of mummies within the pyramids. So that seems strange. There were also not hieroglyphics within these pyramids. People are like, yes, there were. They were everywhere. Apparently, these pyramids did not have hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics were written elsewhere, but they were not within the pyramids themselves. So that seems so strange to me. There's debate about this, you know, that like certain pharaohs were laid to rest in the pyramids, but not tons and tons of mummies as what people remember. So there's a discrepancy there, and there's some debate about it, but I'm genuinely curious because I remember lots of mummies being in the pyramids, and apparently that's not what happened, at least according to current record. What do you remember? That's very strange. This is a basic one. I'm gonna roll through some of these. Uncle Sam, we all know Uncle Sam. We remember Uncle Sam having the red and white striped hat. Now the hat on all record, if you look it up, is white. The official Uncle Sam logo of him has an all white hat, and people are like, that just looks strange because they remember a red and white hat. There's some residual online. If you look, you can see the red and white hats like around, but the official Uncle Sam always had only a white hat. Kennedy assassination, this is one everybody knows. 4 or 6 people in the car. People remember there being 4 people in the car. However, there were always 6 people in the car. How many people do you remember being in that car? Because on record, it was that there were 6 people. And people are like, no, I swear there were only 4. How many do you remember? The Kennedy assassination is strange. The Titanic Champagne Bottle, this is a big one. People remember a ceremony at the launch of the Titanic. White Star Line did this with like a champagne bottle, and apparently it bounced and it didn't break, which means bad luck. That's what people remember. People are like, I remember it bounced and didn't break, which means bad luck. However, current record is there was no champagne bottle ceremony by the White Star Line before the Titanic took off. But people remember this champagne bottle with the Titanic in it, and then it bounced and it didn't break, which meant bad luck. Do you remember this ceremony happening before the Titanic launched? What do you remember? Very curious. Let's see, Fort Knox. People remember Fort Knox being in Tennessee. Now that could be confusing because there's Knox County and Knoxville. They could be conflating Knoxville, Tennessee, but it's always been in Kentucky. Fort Knox has always been in Kentucky, but people remember it being in Tennessee. But it was always in Kentucky. What do you remember as far as the history with Fort Knox? That seems strange. The Lindbergh Baby. Charles Lindbergh's baby was abducted. Now, this is a big one that people remember because was the Lindbergh baby found or was it not found? Current history shows that the Lindbergh baby was found, but people remember them never finding the Lindbergh baby, that they never could find the Lindbergh baby. Charles Lindbergh's son who was kidnapped, people remember it never being found. However, current history shows that it was found. What do you remember? That's a confusing one. Tiananmen Tank Man, people have a memory of the tank in Tiananmen Square running the guy over. However, current history says that it never ran the guy over. He survived and just got up on the tank and ran away. That is a really strange one because people are like, I remember the tank running over the guy. Like, so strange. And it never did. Current history shows it never ran him over. The guy survived. Tiananmen Square. What do you remember? Really weird. Okay, the last one. Billy Graham. Billy Graham died last year. He very sad. He was a TV evangelical preacher, but people remember it happening, his funeral on TV, years before that. People have different memories of when it happened, but it was always in 2018 when he passed away. But people remember it years and years before. Do you remember his funeral happening years before, or do you just remember 2018? Very strange. Anyway, that is history. We've done a lot of them. Please subscribe below if you liked this, or I'm going to put some cards up. Give it a like, subscribe. Jeff Pilkington, Launch TV. We'll be back for more. Thank you, everyone. More Mandela Effects soon, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Peace out.